So here we are, as you can see, Naimi Sharanya. So we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text 17. The chapter is entitled Vidura Approaches Maitreya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh look, there's another sage that's come to join me in my reading. It's almost like it's Bhaktivedanta Swami. Who are you?
Nitai das.
Oh, okay. I'm just here, Naimi Sharanya. You can join me in my reading.
Okay. Look at all the parrots. Lots of parrots gathered.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, so text 17. O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus, you were sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered, and this act of yours bewilders me. Not of bewilderment. Purport. Uddhava was never actually bewildered, but he says that all these contradictions appear to be bewildering. The whole discussion between Krishna and Uddhava was meant for the benefit of Maitreya, who was sitting nearby. The Lord used to call Uddhava for consultation when the city was attacked by Jarasandha and others, and when he executed great sacrifices as part of his routine royal work as Lord of Dwarka. The Lord has no past, present and future, because he is unhampered by the influence of eternal time, and thus nothing is hidden from him. He is eternally self-indulgent. Therefore, his calling for Uddhava to give him enlightenment is certainly astonishing. All these actions of the Lord appear to be contradictory, although there is no contradiction in the routine activities of the Lord. Therefore, it's better to see them as they are, and not attempt to explain them.
Any realizations or thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes if you don't explain them, people can misunderstand them.
Meaning, explain what?
His activities. But I guess you just take it as it is. So if Krishna's lifting, going and heal, that's what he did. Because he's God.
Yeah, I guess matter of fact. How do you explain it?
Because he's God.
Well, yeah. Matter of fact. So many parrots. I hope you all can hear all these parrots. Really
yeah, they all come here to hear the Bhagavatam.
Okay, so text 18. Hear that? All parrots. They're eager.
So please read.
I know I'm about to speak.
Please. Go on.
My Lord, kindly explain to us, if you think us competent to receive it, that transcendental knowledge which gives enlightenment about yourself, and which you explained before to Brahmaji. So many parrots, it's incredible. A pure devotee like Uddhava has no material afflictions, because he engages constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
Ooh.
Wow. A devotee feels afflicted without the association of the Lord. Constant remembrance of the Lord's activities keeps the devotee alive, and therefore Uddhava requested that the Lord please enlighten him with knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam as previously instructed to Brahmaji. So Uddhava is requesting from Krishna for Krishna, please enlighten me. I've heard the story of how you enlightened Lord Brahma, and I want you to enlighten me in the same way that you've enlightened him. It's just asking for, the Lord to please speak and share transcendental knowledge.
Text 19. When I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. Now we got a duck. Purport. The words paramam stitim are significant in this verse. The Lord's transcendental situation was not even spoken of to Brahma when the 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam were explained. This transcendental situation comprises his dealings with devotees engaged in transcendental loving service as exhibited at Dwarka and Vrindavan. When the Lord explained his specific transcendental situation, it was meant for Uddhav only, and therefore Uddhav particularly said Mayam unto me, although the great sage Maitreya was also sitting there. Such a transcendental situation is hardly understood by those whose devotion is mixed with speculative knowledge or fruitive activities. The Lord's activities in confidential love are very rarely disclosed to the general devotees, who are attracted by devotion mixed with knowledge and mysticism. Such activities are the inconceivable pastimes of the Lord.
Thoughts?
No.
So it seems that basically this param stitam, which is there in the verse, transcendental situation, it says was not even spoken of to Brahma when the 4 verses of Bhagavatam were spoken, because the Bhagavatam, those 4 seed verses, they didn't really exactly reveal, I guess in one sense you could say, Krishna directly. So anyway, the Lord's activities in confidential love are very rarely disclosed to general devotees who are attracted by devotion mixed with knowledge and mysticism. So pure devotion is usually only revealed to the pure devotee. Bhakti mama abhijanati, that Krishna can only be known by bhakti, by pure devotional service. So those who have mixed devotion, they're not going to always get it. So, like that. Anyway, it's an interesting point.
Text 20.
It's my version.
Yeah, alright.
I have studied the path of understanding, self-knowledge, from my spiritual master, the personality of Godhead. From my spiritual master, the personality of Godhead, and thus, after circumambulating him, I have come to this place very much aggrieved due to separation. Purport. Sri Uddhav's actual life is the direct symbol of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam enunciated first to Brahmaji by the personality of Godhead. These These 4 very great and important verses from Srimad Bhagavatam are particularly taken out by the Mayavad speculators who construe a different purport to suit their impersonal view of monism. Here is the proper answer to such unauthorized speculators. The verses of Srimad Bhagavatam are purely theistic science, understandable by the postgraduate students of Bhagavad Gita. The unauthorized dry speculators are offenders at the lotus feet of the Lord Sri Krishna, because they distort the purports of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to mislead the public and prepare a direct path to the hell known as Andatamishra. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16:20, such envious speculators are without knowledge and are surely condemned life after life. They unnecessarily take shelter of Sripad Shankaracharya, but he was not so drastic as to commit an offense at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. According to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sripad Shankaracharya preached the Mayavad philosophy for a particular purpose. Such a philosophy was necessary to defeat the Buddhist philosophy of non-existence of the spirit soul. But it was never meant for perpetual acceptance. It was an emergency. Thus, Lord Krishna was accepted by Shankaracharya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his commentation on Bhagavad Gita. Since he was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, he did not dare write any commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, because that would have been a direct offense at the lotus feet of the Lord. But late speculators, in the name of Mayavad philosophy, unnecessarily make their commentary on the Chatushloki Bhagavatam without any bona fide intent.
The monistic dry speculators have no business in the Srimad Bhagavatam because this particular Vedic literature is forbidden for them by the great author himself. Srila Vyasadeva has definitely forbidden persons engaged in religiosity, economic development, sense gratification and finally salvation from trying to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, which is not meant for them. Sripad Sridhar Swami, the great commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, has definitely forbidden the salvationists or monists to deal in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not for them. Yet such unauthorized persons perversely try to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus they commit offences at the feet of the Lord, which even Sripad Shankaracharya dared not do. Thus they prepare for their continuation of miserable life. It should be particularly noted herein that Uddhav studied the Chatusloki Bhagavatam directly from the Lord, who spoke them first to Brahmaji, and this time the Lord explained more confidentially the self-knowledge mentioned as a Paramam Sthitim. Upon learning such self-knowledge of love, Uddhav felt very much aggrieved by feelings of separation from the Lord. Unless one is awakened to the stage of Uddhav, everlastingly feeling the separation of the Lord in transcendental love, as exhibited by Lord Chaitanya also, one cannot understand the real import of the 4 essential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. One should not indulge in the unauthorized act of twisting the meaning and thereby putting himself on the dangerous path of offense.
Really powerful. It mentions time and time again that Shankaracharya did not comment on the Bhagavatam. And even when commenting, propounding Mayavad philosophy, which in one sense is offensive against Krishna, but he also glorified Govinda.
Right.
So it seems that he was somewhat careful in his presentation, but his followers, unfortunately, were not necessarily so careful, and they kind of then they commented on the Chatushloki of Bhagavatam, and that's offensive.
Yeah.
21. My dear Vidura, now I am mad for want of the pleasure of seeing him. And just to mitigate this, I am now proceeding to Badrik Ashram in the Himalayas for association as I have been instructed by him. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord of the standard of Uddhav constantly associates with the Lord in the double perception of simultaneous separation and meeting. Interesting way of putting it. The double perception of simultaneous separation and meeting. The pure devotee is not for a moment unengaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. Execution of the Lord's service is the main occupation of the pure devotee. Uddhav's separation from the Lord was unbearable, and therefore he started to Badrik Ashram in obedience to the Lord's order, because the order of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical. As long as one is engaged in the execution of the order of the Lord, there is no factual separation from him. So that's powerful. So that's an important thing. Constantly associates with the Lord in the double perception of simultaneous separation and meeting. And then that's more or less Prabhupada goes on to explain that although he's separated from Krishna because Krishna came, spoke to him, and then left, but Krishna simultaneously gave him an order. And by following that order, we're associating with the Lord. And one might say, well, how is that if the Lord's not there? Because the sound vibration of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. Plus, by remembering the Lord with our consciousness absorbed in him, similar to the gopis after he left the rasa dance, and they were all absorbed in remembering their pastimes with him, then the Lord was actually present. And so that is simultaneously being in separation from the Lord and being with him. And we're not sure if you're able to see, but there's a beautiful hamsa.
Beautiful.
A beautiful swan just
gliding by.
So really, really
beautiful.
Wonderful. There you can see it.
Yeah. Very nice.
If you look close, right to our left it was. Anyway.
All right, text 22. There in Badrik Ashram, the personality of Godhead in his incarnation as the sages Nara and Narayan has been undergoing great penance since time immemorial for the welfare of all amiable living entities. Pol Pot. Badrika Ashram in the Himalayas, the abode of the Nara Narayan sages, is a great place of pilgrimage for the Hindus. Even up to the present, hundreds and thousands of pious Hindus go to pay respects to the incarnation of Godhead Nara Narayan. It appears that even 5,000 years ago this holy place was being visited by such a holy being as Uddhav, and even at that time the place was known to be very, very old. This particular pilgrimage site is very difficult to visit for ordinary men because of its difficult situation in the Himalayas, in a place which is covered by ice almost all year. A few months during the summer season, people can visit this place at great personal inconvenience. There are 4 dhams, or kingdoms of God, which represent the planets of the spiritual sky, which consist of the Brahma Jyoti and the Vaikunthas. These are Badrikashram, Rameshwara, Jagannath Puri and Dwarka. Faithful Hindus still visit all these holy places for perfection of spiritual realization, following in the footsteps of devotees like Uddhav.
So there are four holy tirthas in India. And so, Badrikashram is one, Rameshwara, Jagannath Puri, and Dwarka. So I've been to 2 of them.
I've been to one.
Which one?
Dwarka.
So I
I
haven't
have
been
nice
to Dwarka.
bhajiyas there.
Huh?
I went with my family, so we had bhajiyas. Pakora, bhajia.
So we should make it a point that we go and visit these places.
Right.
In the summertime, at much inconvenience to ourselves.
That was the point that stood out for me.
Yeah, and that's not a problem. That means hiking. You just ran half a marathon.
I did, yeah.
So I think, personal inconvenience isn't that big of a deal.
Right. We're talking about.
Hey.
All right. We're gonna do one more.
Yeah, definitely. Even though it's sunny and bright, it is actually very cold. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, so now we've heard Uddhav and Krishna speaking as narrated, but now Shukadev's going to speak directly. He's been speaking directly anyway, but Sri Shukadev Goswami said, after hearing from Uddhav all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. Purport. Vidura was informed that the result of the battle of Kurukshetra Vidura was informed that the result of the battle of Kurukshetra was the annihilation of his friends and relatives, as well as the destruction of the Yadu dynasty and also the passing away of the Lord. All these hurled him into bereavement for the time being. But because he was highly advanced in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to pacify himself by enlightenment. As it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, due to our long association with bodily relationships, bereavement on account of the annihilation of friends and relatives is not at all astonishing. But one has to learn the art of subduing such bereavement with higher transcendental knowledge. The talks between Uddhav and Vidura on the topic of Krishna began at sunset, and Vidura was now further advanced in knowledge due to his association with Uddhav. So a couple of really good points here, I think. The main one is that feeling separation or bereavement from a loved one when they pass away, as Prabhupada points out here, it's not astonishing. People are going to feel. We have feelings, we have bodies, and we have emotions. So we need to feel it. But we should be cultivating and developing transcendental knowledge to the point where when it happens, we can kind of also easily move, not say easily, but we can move beyond it by understanding the higher knowledge and higher information about the science of the soul, the science of relationship with God, and the temporal nature of the material world. As Prabhupada often says, true knowledge means understanding what is matter, what is spirit, and what is the relationship between both, or the controller of both, rather. So, I think we should read one more.
Okay. Text 24. While Uddhav, the chief and most confidential amongst the devotees of the Lord, was going away, Vidura, in affection and confidence, questioned him. purport. Vidura was much older than Uddhav. By family relationship, Uddhav was a temporary brother of Krishna's. Contemporary. Yeah, oh, as I say, temporary. Contemporary brother of Krishna's, while Vidura was as elderly as Krishna's father Vasudeva. But although junior by age, Uddhav was much advanced in the devotional service of the Lord, and therefore he is described herein as the chief amongst the devotees of the Lord. Vidura was confident about this, and thus he addressed Uddhav in that higher category. That is a way of courteous dealings between two devotees.
So here we get the, let's say, familial and bodily relationship, and the fact that Uddhav is younger than Vidura. Vidura is actually like his uncle, basically, his uncle Vidura. And but yet Uddhav is more spiritually advanced, and therefore Uddhav is seeking guidance from him. So, you know, the spiritual relationship or seeking transcendental knowledge can come from anyone. We have to be able to recognize their spiritual advancement and not get hung up on the age, I guess you could say, you know, the age difference, although someone who's younger would certainly show respect, and Uddhav was doing that also throughout this conversation, if you remember. So it's been about 20 minutes. You want to read one more?
Okay.
Vidura said, "O Uddhav, because the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord himself." Purport. The servants of the Lord are actually the servants of society. They have no interest in human society other than to enlighten it in transcendental knowledge. They are interested in imparting knowledge of the relationship of the living being with the Supreme Lord, the activities in the transcendental relationship, and the ultimate goal of human life. That is the real knowledge which can help society achieve the real aim of human welfare. Wonderful, wonderful. That's so nice. You can read now.
Knowledge in the matter of the bodily necessities of eating, sleeping, mating, and faring, transformed into various branches of advancement in knowledge, is all temporary. A living being is not the material body, but an eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Being, and thus revival of his self-knowledge is essential. Without this knowledge, the human life is baffled. The servants of the Lord Vishnu are entrusted with this responsible work, and so they wander over the earth and to all other planets in the universe. Thus, the knowledge which was received by Uddhav directly from the Lord deserves to be distributed in human society, especially to persons like Vidura, who are highly advanced in the devotional service of the Lord.
Real transcendental knowledge descends in the disciplic succession from the Lord to Uddhav, from Uddhav to Vidura, and so on. Such supreme transcendental knowledge is not possible to achieve by the process of imperfect speculation as performed by the so-called learned, mundane wranglers. Vidura was anxious to know from Uddhav that confidential knowledge as paramam stitim, in which the Lord is known by his transcendental pastimes. Although Vidura was older than Uddhav, he was anxious to become a servant of Uddhav in the transcendental relationship. This formula of transcendental disciplic succession is taught by Lord Chaitanya also. Lord Chaitanya advises that one receive transcendental knowledge from anyone, whether a brahmana or a shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, provided that the person is factually conversant with the science of Krishna. A person who knows the science of Krishna is factually a bona fide spiritual master. So a very nice ending to that purport, in the sense that not only is it not about age, but it's also not about caste or varna, and it's also not about ashram either. So, you know, a sannyasi can hear from a brahmachari, or a brahmana can also hear from a shudra. And Lord Chaitanya, he set that example. He was hearing from Ramananda Roy, who was considered I think a Kayasta. I think he's from the Kayasta caste, and that was considered a Sudra caste, and he was asking him questions and hearing from him. So like that, yeah, such a good example. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I concur. It's true. We
Okay.
shouldn't make judgments. So, bhakti is very personal. It's in the heart, and you never know how deep someone's love goes for the Lord. So we should have appreciation for
Wow, that's
everyone.
very nice. Okay, so I'm going to walk up towards the camera now, which is a little
Oh,
bit of a ways
the
away.
sage is leaving me now. I'll stay here under the tree alone,
Thank you.
meditating.
Oh, Goddess Baba.
I'm going to meditate on the personal form of the Lord. Thank you, everyone. What's this going in the front for? Thank you for watching this reading. If you watch it all the way to the end, Hare Krishna.